And it's recorded. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks very much, everyone. A couple things before we get going. The sound system in here and the Zoom system, Chris spent some time this morning along with Telly, who's in the back, to make sure that things should go not much smoother. If there's any issues, if we have any technical issues, obviously we will pause the meeting and then resume once at least audio, most likely audio and video will be back up. If there's any problems at all, I wanted to just get that out of the way. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The first item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the submission of minutes, and we have the special town council meeting from May 25th, and we have the regular town council meeting from May 26th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Before we move forward, I had a request from Lieutenant St. Pierre, who's on the call along with the chief and beautiful young woman there. And I'd like, if this council is amenable to it, a motion to move forward the request from Lieutenant St. Pierre. Could you help me, Madam Clerk, on what that agenda item number is?
I2.
Thank you. So we could have a motion to move forward I2. Rationale is that beautiful young woman is in the school, and we want to make sure that she's in bed in the time that she's supposed to by mom and dad. So
It's a good reason.
So move.
Second.
any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Lieutenant St. Pierre, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, is there anything that you wanted to say before I get into it and introduce Ella?
Thank you. I think our host and our guest will do an exemplary job tonight. I want to thank her for coming forward tonight and speaking to the town council. I've had the privilege of meeting her last year at the summer camp, and we challenged each other to knock hockey, and she was the victor, and she earned it. So thank you once again for coming out tonight and speaking to the council on a very important community policing tool for the Bristol Police Department.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Chairman and members of the town council, I appreciate you hearing us tonight. I'd like to introduce Ella Perry. She was one of our campers last year, and she has agreed to come forward. I think anything that the chief or I could say in support of this would probably be more profound coming from Ella. Just before I turn it over to Ella, we are making a request for $1,500 this year in support. We have brought back the fee this year because we are going to be instituting some of the pre-COVID activities that we were doing before that we were not able to do during COVID. And because of that, costs have increased. Our financial support has increased a little bit, so we've reduced our request from town council, but it's still a very genuine request. And without that money, we won't be able to achieve the full activity roster that we want to achieve at this camp. So I'd like, at this point, I know you don't want to hear from me. So Ella, can you just give us a quick impression of what the camp meant to you?
Sure. So last year, me and my best friend attended Bristol Town Camp, and of course it wasn't the same as what it used to be, but it was still amazing, and they taught us a lot about peer, like whatever you have to do with peer agreement and stuff like that. We learned about integrity, doing the right thing, a lot about how to disparage negative energy. Even though it wasn't the same because of COVID regulations had impacted us, it was police department and all the other people did an amazing job with organizing it. We did a lot of fun games, and it helped the kids get out of like quarantine and helped them get more energized and be happy to be in the summer. And it was just an amazing camp overall.
Thank you,
Ella, you have a future in public relations and public speaking. So if the council doesn't make the motion, I will. So
I'll make a motion that we approve the $1,500 request.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say I'm so excited that this fourth annual Children's Leadership Camp is continuing, because I think leadership, integrity, respect, honesty is so important in this day and age. I think where we're told to kind of pit against each other, and we see it in the media and everywhere else, I think this is a chance where we can build bridges to communicate with each other. And I think this is an excellent leadership academy and camp, and just so excited it's going to continue, move forward. Yep.
Any other discussion? If anybody's watching, the key to this council's heart is just bring a beautiful young woman and ask her for money, and we'll probably say yes to it. So, no, seriously, Ellie, you did a wonderful job. And Lieutenant St. Pierre and Chief, we're very proud of what you do. This is an opportunity to, I think Councilman Sweeney captured it perfectly. It's focusing on the things that really matter. And we know that, and that's why I think we support it wholeheartedly. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C1, and this is for ordinance number 2021-7, and this is to the health and sanitation, and this is to increase the number of tattoo licenses from 2 to 4, which would be specifically for application of permanent makeup. Second reading.
What's this council's pleasure?
I make a motion that we approve it.
There's a motion made by Tony to approve, seconded by Mary. Discussion? I'll just real quick and say that the clerk rightly pointed out that this is specifically for makeup tattoo and not a standard tattoo, for lack of a better. I'm picturing mom on my sleeve or something like that. It is not that. It's a specific guidelines and requirements. Any other any other discussion?
Just very briefly, and to your point, being permanent makeup, some of the folks who are very unfortunate in life, they actually able to enjoy, these perks. Well, I'm not going to say perks, but the benefits of, a permanent tattooing.
Well
So
put.
true. So true.
Would anybody like to mention Halsey Herreshoff before we move?
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think he has one. I think
It's a common concept.
Excellent. Well, I feel it's important that we do that every time we talk about tattoos. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is C2, and this is for ordinance 2021-8, and this is to motor vehicles. And this is to add Noyes Avenue to the residential parking zone and to the designated residential parking streets. Also second reading for adoption.
What's this council's pleasure?
I think I move passage. I think it's important that we get this part done. I know there's lots of issues on that street, but this is sort of separate and apart from that, and at least allow the residents to be able to get residential stickers if they need to park somewhere nearby.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Mary, seconded by Tim to approve. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is D1. This is for Deborah Kit Van Heinigen from DBA Six Pack Brewery, request for a vitrilling license.
Motion to approve the vitrilling license based on the positive recommendations.
Second.
Motion made by Tim to approve, seconded by Tony. Is the applicant on? Is Deborah on? I'd like to give her, as we give everyone, a 30-second opportunity for sharing what's going on there. Deborah, if you could unmute, state your full name and address for the record, and share with this council and the public what you're doing. We can't hear you yet.
Hi,
Oh, there you are.
I'm Deborah Kitts Van Hanigan. I'm one of the owners of Six Pack Brewing. And I am asking to be approved for the victualizing license to be able to have the ability to give our customers something that they would like, which is the ability to not just consume some beer, but also have something quick that they can have here to eat as well.
What are you offering, Deborah?
Well, what we would like to do is work with vendors to have packaged foods available that we could either microwave or have a small toaster oven or something like that to be able to give them something they can enjoy while they're here.
Nice. Deborah, if you could please state your full name and address for the record,
Yes.
please.
Deborah Kitts Van Hannigan. I live at 18 Fesser Avenue in Bristol, Rhode Island.
Thank you. I live at 17 Fesser Avenue. I actually know where they live, so.
It's it. Yeah, okay. Yes. Hi.
Neighbor.
I recognize
Hi,
you.
neighbor.
The neighbor,
Yeah,
exactly,
right there.
exactly.
Yeah.
Any discussion from the council?
Just that, Deborah, I'm looking at the schedule here and you're looking to be open on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays. Am I correct?
Well, for summer hours, we're open Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, 4 to 8. Saturdays from 2 to 9 and Sundays from 1 to 6. And that changes in the fall and the winter.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good luck, Deborah.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D2, and this is Flavia Thornton from Avalon Medical Spa, 573 Hope Street. Request for a tattoo license specifically for the application for permanent makeup.
Interestingly, we have some of these now. Council pleasure?
I move that we approve a license for this particular salon.
Second.
Motion made by Mary to approve, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good luck.
The next item on the agenda is D3. We have Jennifer Cavallaro, DBA The Beehive Cafe LLC, and this is a request to transfer the Class BV intoxicated beverage license to Sherry Scott for Scooter Hospitality LLC, doing business as The Beehive Cafe, and this is a call for public hearing on July 7th.
I move that we set the public meeting for July 7th.
Second.
Motion made by Tony for the public hearing on July 7th, seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is a one-day Sunday dancing and entertainment licenses specific for July 4th.
What's this council's pleasure?
Well, since we're not celebrating on the 4th, we're going to celebrate on the 5th. I think it would certainly be a worthwhile cause to allow folks to enjoy an extra day. So I move in favor.
Second.
Motion made by Tony to approve, seconded by Tim. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is D5, and this is Barbara Palumbo, the coordinator from the Bristol Prevention Coalition. And this is a request for mobile food establishment event permit for the Stop Underage Drinking Awareness event on August 15th. I did write on there, I see item F4, because she will also be requesting the use of the town common for that mobile food establishment event.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the mobile food establishment event permit for August 15th from 10:30 to 2 p.m.
Second.
Motion made by Tim to approve, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Moving right along. The next item on the agenda is E1, and this is the dancing and entertainment license renewals.
Make a motion to approve as stated, based on the positive recommendations.
My colleagues are in a good mood this evening. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion made by Tim to approve, seconded by Tony. Any discussion?
Just briefly, thank you, Council, for pointing out, that to follow all the regs, that's a very important point. And actually that I probably should have stated that previously in the other one. I'm sure they understand that.
It's a great point, Tony, is that these motions, our packets are full of recommendations that we take my colleagues and I take very seriously. And we look through the packet and look at those recommendations and have discussions with department heads or directly with the administrator, depending on the situation. And those motions are subject to those recommendations unless otherwise said. So, but it's a great point. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is E2, and this is for the public laundry license renewals.
Based on all the positive recommendations, I make a motion to approve the public laundry license renewals as stated.
Second.
Motion made by Tim to approve, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the itinerant mobile food establishment renewals. As you may recall, this was changed from the peddlers and hawkers to the itinerant mobile foods. Just for the
I
slush
don't know
pups
if
and
I
ice
like the
cream
new
trucks.
name any more than
Neither
the
do I,
old one,
because
to
I
be
keep
quite
stumbling
honest.
on the words.
Yeah. Yes. Council pleasure.
Again, based on all the positive recommendations, make a motion to approve the mobile food establishment renewals as stated.
Second.
Motion made by Tim to approve, seconded by Tony. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next-
So, go ahead, please.
The next item on the agenda is F1, and this is Patty Nana for the 4th of July committee. This is a request for permission to sell and serve alcoholic beverages at the Bristol Maritime Center for the annual 4th of July wine tasting fundraiser on September 23rd, 2021.
Based on all the positive recommendations, I move that we approve it.
Second.
Motion made by Tony to approve, seconded by Tim. This is a classic example of, we're not even at this year's 4th of July, and the committee is already thinking about next year's 4th of July and working to raise funds. So outstanding job. Any other discussion?
Excellent organization.
Yeah. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F2, and this is David Andrade of 186 Wood Street. This is a request for 2 15-minute parking spaces on Wood Street, Sunday through Saturday between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5:30, and 1 designated loading zone on Charles Street from Sunday through Saturday between the hours of 6:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m.
So these are existing signs without ordinances. And the chief is on. Chief, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to this, but we periodically find these for usually unrelated reasons, whether we're checking other areas and we look and see what we did on these. And this one in particular came up. But Chief, could you elaborate, please?
Yes, you're exactly correct, Mr. Chairman. Those signs have been posted for decades at that location. And as you know, without the proper ordinance to support that, the police department is unable to properly enforce those and to bring them forth, through the legislative body and through the municipal court. So codifying them in ordinance will allow the police department to issue an appropriate violation, would allow a vendor or not a vendor or a violator to bring that issue to the municipal court and for that matter to be heard. So it's just codifying what's already existing. And as you said, we are going through many of these issues. And I think Councilwoman Perella made a very valid point. We found many of those on Noyes Avenue. She stated that prior to having an official, town administrator who vetted those out through the police chief, the council sometimes just contacted DPW and those were just installed. So a very good point. And as we go through some of these here, we're cleaning up some of those. We're eliminating some of the ones that are no longer needed. But we did view those. I went out and physically viewed that establishment. And I do support the request to put them in proper ordinance.
Thank you, Chief. And Assistant Solicitor Amy Goins, nice to see you. I would say the correct motion in this instance is to refer to the solicitor to create an ordinance to reflect current conditions.
Yes,
So
I
moved.
agree.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim to refer, seconded by Tony. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F3, and we have Mary Kay Wright for the Arts in Common, and this is a request to close a portion of High and Wally Street for the annual Porch Fest music event to be held September 19, 2021, with a rain date of September 26th.
She on?
Is Mary Kay on? We'll give Mary Kay 30, well, we'll give Mary Kay a minute we'll go twice as much as we normally do. Mary Kay, if you could state your full name and address for the record and share what's going on.
Go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, it's Mary Kay. And Doug Popovich is with me too.
Doug Popovich, 64 High Street.
Mary Kay, right, 165 Wood Street.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Doug.
Well, you're on the thing, but anyway, I think you have our packet. We're super excited about doing another Porch Fest. And do you have any questions for us? We have
T-shirts.
chatted with the police, and I think we have all the things aligned.
So the question would just be if you could share with the public what Porch Fest is if they're not familiar with it.
Absolutely. So what we do is close a portion of High Street for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon and have our 9 great porches each host 2 different bands over those 3-hour periods. So we have a section closed so people can stroll and dance and walk around, visit, and then listen to music. And that's about it. We've worked with the police to close off the street, and we have funding for that. We'll have some portalets in place. And, you know, it was a great time 2 years ago. The council has a packet on it, and it was local and fun and family friendly. And we're hoping for the same exact thing this year.
I think you captured it
I think you did,
perfectly.
yeah.
Perfectly. Council?
I think it was a great event. I really enjoyed it in the last year or two that you had it prior to COVID. So I would move that we grant approval.
I'll second the motion. And I'd just like to say, we talk about economic development all the time and community building. And this is definitely one of those events. The last time I attended, it was just well-planned, well-organized, and an all-around just a fun event.
Any other discussion?
Tony, I'm glad to see you back again. Obviously, you know, I remember when it started, and certainly it is nice to see everybody energized and return to some normalcy.
Yeah, we really missed this a lot last year. So thanks for doing this again.
Okay, so we had a motion made by Mary, seconded by Tony to approve.
No, but Tim.
By Tim, I said Tim. Motion made by Mary, seconded by Tim to approve. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good luck.
Good
Thanks
luck.
for your
Thank
service.
you. Hope to see you there.
Yes.
I'll be
Yeah,
there.
we were there.
God willing.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is F4, and we have Barbara Palumbo, the coordinator for Bristol Prevention Prevention, request to use the town common for the Stop Underage Drinking Awareness event to be held on August 15, 2021.
Council?
I'm just catching up here for a minute.
We're very
But
quick here.
yes, I move.
I was gonna say.
I'll second it.
So I'm not sure who made the motion. I'm going to take it as Mary made the motion, seconded by Tony to approve. Is there any other discussion?
No, yes, just briefly.
Should
I
I
was
check with
just
Mary
looking-
if Tony has any other discussion?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
all right.
Mary, anything else? No. No, I was just looking for permission from or concurrence from the Recreation Director, and obviously we have that on the packet, so.
Yes, and in reflecting earlier,
Mhm.
so perfect. Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, all right, that was unanimous. Thank you.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is G1A, and this is for Bristol Housing Authority to fill the tenant position, to fill the unexpired term ending January 2023.
Would you remind this council, I know there was discussion, we had 2 wonderful applicants and both were fighting for the other one to get the position. And it was
I know.
very atypical. Yes, exactly. So seriously, they were both were very supportive of each other. But I recall that there was a potential, I believe it was Carol that shared with us that she believed she had a potential conflict.
Correct. So she is on the Board of Tenant Affairs, which may cause a conflict of her being on the Bristol Housing Authority as a tenant position. And I did speak with the solicitor and he did confirm that it would be a conflict. So if the council would recommend that she be on the Bristol Housing Authority as a tenant position, then she would have to resign from the tenant's position in the tenant's affair. Or she could step down and allow the other applicant to take the position would be up to the council.
So if I recall, Carol was an advocate of Pasquale getting the position.
Correct.
Council?
I'll make a motion to appoint Pasquale D. Alessio. No.
Delicia.
Thank you.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to appoint Pasquale D'Alessio. Any other discussion?
Thank you.
I did that well, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Oh, I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G1B, and this is for the Harbor Commission Advisory Committee to fill 2 unexpired terms ending August 2023, and 1 to expire ending 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we interviewed both candidates.
I agree.
So therefore, I recommend that we appoint both of them to the vacancies.
I'll second the motion.
Robert and Peter.
Does this council have a preference? We have one that expires in 2023 and one in 2022.
I would move that Peter fill the vacancy for 2023.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Motion made by Tony to appoint both applicants, with Peter being the 2023 expiration and Robert being the 2022 expiration. Is there any other discussion?
May I mention
Yes,
something?
please.
So there is a 3rd vacancy, so I would, if it's the council's pleasure, to advertise for that.
Tony, could you add
Third
that to your
vacancy?
motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. Is there a second? For that?
Second.
Thank you. So motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim, to include advertising for the 3rd open position. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is G1C, and this is the Bristol Prevention Coalition, and these are unexpired terms ending in January 2023, and these are for additional new members. So normally volunteers.
So do we normally interview folks for preparation?
No, not normally. No.
I don't recall ever interviewing.
Yeah, it's more like a
So, and we may have up to 20 members, if I'm reading this correctly.
yes.
And presently we have 11, so adding the 6 would be 17. So
Correct.
I'm in favor of the appointing all of the candidates that are interested.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by both Mary and Tim. Mary, I'm going to go with Tim this time. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is G1D, and this is the Board of Tenant Affairs. We have a letter of resignation from Elizabeth Burns.
Motion to accept Elizabeth Burns' resignation with a letter of thanks.
Second.
May I also suggest that we include in that motion that we advertise for that position?
Yep, as well. So moved.
So motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony for the letter of thanks to Elizabeth Burns, plus advertising that open position. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1 from Erin Donovan Boyle. And she was to do a presentation and request funding from the council. Although I did receive an email this afternoon, she is unable to attend due to a conflict, and she was unable to find a representative to attend in her place. And she respectfully requests the agenda item to be continued to July 7th.
I have no problem with that.
I don't either. So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to continue to our July 7th meeting. Any other discussion?
I just have a question for Melissa, and this is a pretty hefty packet. Would you like us to just give it back? So that-
Yes.
I feel bad about that when you see it for something like that.
Thank you for saving those trees, Mary. Yeah.
Trying to feel how heavy that digital file is. It's not bad. Yeah, it's not. Anything else? Hearing no other discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda would be I3, and this is Treasurer Gausser with the establishment of the new assignment funds for Gooding and Hope. And we have a draft of the town Bristol funds establishment and maintenance policy.
Julie.
Yes, hello.
The policy was actually just attached for reference because I was referencing an assigned fund, and it was fairly recently that we established that policy. So it's just there for a refresher. And this agenda item is to address the almost $2.8 million that the town received for the sale of the Gooding Plaza property. So land at that property. Currently, the funds are sitting in the general fund, and we had a lot of discussions around the time of the sale for using those proceeds for future capital projects or other restricted purposes. And so because I know that there are still a lot of discussion that needs to be had around that, this request is simply to remove this money from the general fund, set it aside into an assigned fund, which is just simply a council vote to reserve those funds. We can discuss use at a later date. All use will, the money won't be touched until we have those discussions. And so I guess that would be the motion.
And the motivation is that we're coming to the end of our fiscal year.
Correct.
So it
Yes.
was
So
required to.
This
make
is our
decision
last
on
council
this.
meeting before June 30th. So for audit purposes and just to have a clean books, we'll just do a transfer from the general fund into an assigned fund.
And as Julie said, we did have lots of conversation about this. We need a lot more conversation about this, but this just makes sure the money is segregated, if you will, and we can go back and talk about it at a later date.
And as a reminder, at any time, the council can unassign these funds as well. So if the council decides they don't want to use these funds, we can put them back in the general fund just for the public's information.
Perfect. Council?
So we are looking for a motion
To assign the Gooding proceeds to an assigned fund, out of the general fund into an assigned fund.
I wouldn't have said anything.
You probably could have.
So I'll move that.
I'll second the motion. And Julie, I just had a quick question. Is that new account that it's being assigned to, is it interest bearing?
Yes, it will be interest bearing.
Excellent.
Yes.
Good. Want to make sure we.
Not that there's
Make a
very
little
much
bit.
interest to
No.
bear right now, but it will be in an interest bearing account.
Good.
And we'll see what happens, right? So any other discussion?
Just very briefly, because I'm glad we're not going down the rabbit hole today, because we just, I believe the last council meeting,
Microphone.
the last council meeting or the one prior to, we actually allocated like 14 million for different projects as a whole. So at this point, we can weigh off on this until things play out, so.
Agreed. There's a lot of things, and we won't go in, as you said, down the rabbit hole right now. We were hoping to be able to do something similar like we did with the Colt Fund and have those proceeds gain. And it doesn't seem that at the moment that's something that we can do, but there's lots of discussion left and lots of research to be done before we get to a bottom line.
So very wise decision for us to go forward.
Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, just to expand upon the discussion. So the title establish a maintenance fund. In the future, it would allow us to execute a project much quicker. For example, I'm going to give you an example. The local newspaper called me today. That's why I didn't want to surprise you when you read it. So the Wally Street Beach project is an example where the bids came in much higher, if you recall, than we had anticipated. So the project is stalled currently. Diane, Director of Community Development, had researched it to see if we could use the American Relief Plan Fund as part of resiliency to get the project back on track, but it's ineligible. So in this case, by having this fund, we would go to the council at a future meeting and say, we'd like to use our community project fund and do a short-term borrow from ourselves and pay it back like in 5 years to our capital budget. It would allow us to keep the projects going rather than doing another bond, which takes months and months. It would allow us, and we have the money there, we pay it back. And the plan, after speaking to the finance director, it would be always to keep that payable amount of 2.8 million in the account. So it's very similar to the Colt Fund, which has been successful for the maintenance of the Colt School. So, and again, you might be reading about this. I did speak to one of the reporters, and they asked about the fund. They asked about Wally Beach, and this would be a perfect example. We believe to keep that project going because currently we don't have enough funding to do the project.
And on that project, that's regarding the seawall, is that correct?
I'm glad you asked. Yeah.
Ju-
I like talking about this project because Wally Beach is, it's a place to access the water, but it's very difficult to get to the water. So our design had 3 accessible pathways through the seawall, and the seawall would be more like riprap. It would be much more resilient for sea rise, but at the same time, much more accessible for all ages to get to the water. So something we wanted to do this year, but unfortunately, as I said, the bids came in higher than expected.
So we could not include that natural swimming pool then on that list.
Yeah, we
should be
maybe
careful how far we
maybe
go down.
maybe a later
Yes.
maybe a later phase. I think that would be great. I love those swimming pools in the salt
If you
water.
ever,
So,
right, if you ever visit the Azores, you'll see those constantly everywhere, and they're really awesome. But anyway.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good one.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second to assign these funds. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I4, and this is the discussion of compensation packages for the town administrator and the town clerk.
So I had this added to the agenda on this meeting, but we had a lot of discussion to get to this point. First, I should tell you that personnel, this is a discussion about personnel, can be either in executive session or in public session. And when given the option to both the administrator and the clerk, both opted to have this discussion in public session. The reason for the discussion tonight is we really don't have a clear policy, and to be clear, a policy is one that can be updated and changed, I suppose, like a lot of things, but it's kind of a baseline for this council and future councils, quite honestly, to move forward on things like this as it pertains to full-time employees. I reached out to the solicitor, and he in turn reached out to our HR director, Chris Jocelyn, and they completed a compensation package, a memorandum, which you all got, which was kind of strange in the packet. It's actually I4, but I know you all received it separately. And it includes a breakdown, which I'd asked for this council, to talk about what is a generally accepted compensation package. We're not talking about dollars here at the second. We're talking about kind of what should be included in it. And if I may, I'm going to take a moment and talk about this kind of each line. And we're speaking of both the administrator and the clerk. The charter speaks a little differently to the clerk's position, and it speaks differently to the administrator's position. But I want to see if we can kind of put most of this, if not all of this, together. That this includes medical and dental. It includes, there's a conversation here about vacation time, but I'll start off with medical and dental. It's suggested that medical and dental be included with both full-time elected positions. Just so we're clear, I'm going to tell you where I'm coming from on this, just to kind of get that out of the way. And I think we probably all are. That makes total sense to me. I personally think that it should be included. It should be a single plan if you're single, or a family plan if that's what you need. Whatever is necessary for the needs of that person sitting in that seat at that time. And I do believe it should be based off non-union copay, or 20% is what it currently is. But I think non-union is a nice reference point. So if that goes up in the future, it goes up. If it goes down, it goes down, and it happens automatically without discussion. Next, that was A. B is vacation and sick time. And it suggested that, I'm going to read this verbatim, vacation and sick time should be left to the judgment of the 2 elected officials. However, policy should be specifically state that there is no accumulation, I can't say it tonight, or buyout of vacation, personal, or sick time. So I'm going to take that and unpack it. This, in my head, says that we leave it to the elected official in that seat to make their own determination to take their time. I think that's absolutely the right way to go. They're elected officials, both of those positions. And notice I'm not saying the people that are there right now, it's the elected position. They were elected by the people and they're responsible to the people. And if they know what's necessary, that position, both positions require a lot of after hours. We're sitting here after hours because those are full-time positions, but there's meetings, there's other events that are necessary. And as we all know, we're part-time and our job is never done. We have people ask us, we ask to be here, we're happy to be here, but people ask us questions all the time. That is also very, very true of full-time positions. I'm almost done here. Participation in the Murs pension system should be similar to that of non-union employees. This should include contributions to their pension in the same percentage as non-union employees, as well as a 1% OPEB contribution. Again, I love the automatic of this, is that there's no discussion about it, is whatever's happening with the non-union follows suit with the full-time elected officials. It's there if they can take advantage of it, and if they can, wonderful. Salaries for both the clerk and the administrator should be established in your annual budget. I'm going to read the rest of this and share my thoughts, again, with the proviso that the town administrator salary can only be changed binarily and with the effect and be effective after election. I'll say that a different way. Charter says that the administrator's salary must be set in this election cycle for the next election cycle. I believe, and we can have some more discussion about this, we should do the same thing for the clerk. That's a policy. Now, Charter says we must do it for the administrator. I personally think we should do it for the clerk. I love that because it removes the personnel, right? It removes the person. There are two human beings sitting over here that we're talking about, but not talking about. And I like the fact that we remove, it's not about the person. It's not about their history. It's not about anything. It's not about political parties. It's about setting a reasonable expectation for what's going to happen over the next couple of years. Next was there is no provision to be made for longevity, life insurance, health insurance buybacks. That in English is that there is no accumulation. I can't say that word tonight. There is no total, right? Payback for any unused vacation or sick time. Let's go back to the sick time for a moment. If we're not controlling sick time, we shouldn't pay for sick time. So if the clerk or the administrator need to be out sick, they need to be out sick. And we respect and trust that both will make the decision accordingly. If they need to be home, they should be home. It's okay. The people of Bristol will ultimately make the call of whether they felt that those were reasonable things that were happening, just the same way they make reasonable decisions on us. If we're not at meetings, they're going to do the same thing with us. Or we are at meetings, they're going to do the same thing with us. So I agree with that vehemently, that there should be no buybacks, both in health insurance or pays for unused vacation time or sick days. And I think we're all in agreement. I think we're actually probably in agreement with most, if not all of this, but I'm interested to hear what my colleagues think. Almost done here. Once decisions are made with compensation packages, this actually says during executive session. Initially, this was going to be in executive session, but as I said, both the administrator and the clerk wanted this to be in public session. And that we'll put this, what we would do with this is we're not going to wordsmith every little thing. In my opinion, I think what we can do is get the crux of this. And if we're all comfortable with it, we can refer to the solicitor to come back at our next meeting to kind of put the bow on it, if you will. That doesn't mean we're not going to have discussion here. It just means that if we're talking about and, or, and if, and all of that, I think we can stay probably far away from that and have Amy and Mike and Andy work on our behalf to come up with a clean document. We can clean it up more than that. One thing that's not here, and I think we're probably all in agreement on this too, is that if we're going to be even-handed, if we're going to be fair, then we need to remove the two people that are sitting over there, Steve Contenti and Melissa Cadero. And how do we do that? And I think we've heard this from some of you, all of you, and differently, is this would, in my opinion, go into effect, and in others' opinions too, at the next election cycle, just like we were talking about how we adjust the administrator's salary, if there is an adjustment. Now, it was recently adjusted, but it hadn't been for quite a long time. So let me say that again. So any decision that we make tonight and anything else that we want to add in, and of course, my colleagues are going to share their thoughts, is at the next election cycle. So if we change something, if we want something, if we put all of these things into place, if we all agree, then they would, in my opinion, apply at the next cycle. And that means that both the current administrator and clerk can make an informed decision on whether or not they want to move forward, knowing the new things that are there. But changing it now is a question that I would ask my colleagues and see what you think. There's a lot of things that go along with that. There's a lot of things in place right now that have been accepted practices. And we can talk about if we're comfortable with those things, or, staying in place for that. We'll call it 1.5 years for ballpark numbers. I think I said enough, colleagues.
Mr. Chairman, I just like to say I appreciate your comments, and to dealing with this compensation package, I definitely agree that this has to be a prospective approach, and it would fall into place. The new policy should fall into place, if my colleagues agree, to their successors, whether that be them or somebody new that falls into these two elected positions. But I also feel the same way as elected officials. I think you're elected by the people of the town. You really work for the people of the town. So you don't necessarily report to any type of manager or hierarchy. So as far as the vacation and sick time, I do think we need to take a closer look at moving forward and removing that on that one. And but as far as the medical and dental insurance, I think that should stay in place. Number A. I think C, participating in the Murs pension system. Personally, I think that should stay in place. D, the salary of the town clerk and the town administrator should be established at the annual budget. I think that should be stay in place. And no provisions for longevity, life insurance, and health insurance prospectively. That should be taken a look at. I'm interested to hear what my colleagues here on that and removing that as well. If there's any value add to the longevity or not. But maybe we should think about also that as well.
I would just, for a point of clarity, Amy, if you could weigh in on C. I think Tim brought up a point about the Murs. My understanding from talking with Mike Ursillo is that it's actually a state requirement, so it must be there. Is that correct? If available to, if the employee.
That is correct.
Oh, there you are. So if an employee, if an elected official sitting in that seat can take advantage of it, it must be offered to them, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary.
I have a few thoughts about this. And so my areas of somewhat difference are on B and on E. And I just, for the record, I agree with you that the clerk should also be within the same, handled the same way under the salaries, and when the compensation would go into effect, should be include the clerk as well.
Okay.
So I don't have any issue with A. B, I kind of wrestle with this one because this is the vacation and sick time, the judgment that they're elected officials, that they report to the public. I totally agree with that. I think we all work for the public. But I just I'm curious as to what other communities do, because on one hand, I can see, I'm not saying that it would be taken advantage of, but I can see what the public will think that this is a problem, in the sense that someone doesn't have any sort of set amount of time, even if they can't carry it over. And I feel like people have a right, like, to, have certain, if they have sick time, if they're able to keep so many sick days, if they get a serious illness, something like that. And this is the one that sort of bothers me the most.
Can I add something to that, if I may? And to your point, I had a conversation with the administrator about this about 1 year ago. And if I may, you were in your front yard. You told me this. You were in your front yard. You were on a vacation week that you took. And someone had said to you, must be nice. And they meant it as a joke. They really did. They didn't mean it unkindly, as far as at least the way I understood the story. But I think it's fair that a full-time elected official should be able to know that they have X vacation time. So to your point, Mary, it's fair, but I just don't, I'm very uncomfortable. And I apologize for taking your time, Mary,
okay.
but I'm very uncomfortable calling out an X amount of time Because I think when you do that and you don't use it, then we kind of fall back on the payouts on it. And that's where I kind of get uncomfortable with it. But again, you were making a point.
Well, I mean, I think that, it depends on how excessive the payouts are. I mean, and how much is allowed to be carried over. I mean, if you get like 3 weeks and you can carry over no more than 2 weeks ever, then it's not really a big issue. It's when people start banking hundreds of days of sick or vacation time over a very long period of time that becomes a real issue. So I'm not really sure. I don't know if anybody's done any research on this, like what other elected officials get and how this is handled. Amy, do you know anything about that?
This is Amy Goins. Our office can certainly provide with elected clerks and administrators and attempt to give a flavor of what is common.
And the other one, I think that person would be helpful, just to see, like, the mayors are elected, the administrators. The other one that I have an issue with is the provision for health insurance buybacks in particular, any of those buybacks, but the health insurance in particular, because I think what happens is that is going to set up an incentive for people to take the health insurance, and a family plan is around, where I work anyways, like $20,000. And a single plan is around 8,000-ish. So I think that if, you're like, well, I'm not going to get anything for that, so I'll just take the plan. And I actually had an interesting thing happen to me when I was in the legislature, because I wasn't really needing health insurance for my job because I was already in the legislature when I got the job, and they provided that. And at one point, one of the CFO where I work said, you better take this health insurance, Mary, because they may not make this offer to you again. And so one person had 2 plans for whatever reason. And I just think it would be a lot more cost effective that people have that option. Most people have most people have 2 people working in the family. They usually have health insurance through one or the other, and usually the other person buys it out. I really think that is a mistake for us to not offer it, because people would probably take it if it's available to them, and not take it if they could get maybe 2,000 or whatever. Like the buyback's like 2,000 or 3,000, isn't it? Something like that. I think that's a mistake. As far as life insurance goes, I mean, that is usually probably one of the least expensive things that an employee gets, isn't it? It's like a few $100s a year, something like that. Julie, do you know? I mean, it's very inexpensive. I think it's billed like maybe once a year, isn't it?
Billed annually and varies depending on the person's makeup, their age and demographics. So
And it covers people basically while they're employed. So if something were to happen while they were out in doing their duties, I think that is fair enough. That's not going to break any town. On longevity, I kind of go both ways on that one. That is one that I don't think the elected official needs the longevity, because you're running for the office, and just being elected is sort of the reward itself. And longevity is there to be able to put into place and sort of keep good employees. I think the issue comes up in this case is what happens when you have employees that have worked in a situation and then go on to an elected official, but they worked for the town for X number of years. And do you get that or you do not get that? And I think that becomes tricky. And that's why I think the prospective aspect that Tim talked about, I don't even know that it's prospective to the next election, but is it maybe prospective to the next person that comes into the office? Because I mean, so in theory right now, if we don't resolve this, or we say that it's not resolved, we will resolve it. But if we have this whole thing where it'll be like going forward, but we're not grandfathering these people in, but they're going to have a year and a half of like the way it was, like sort of status quo, and then we take it away from them. If it's going to be perspective, I think it should be perspective to the next person that has that position. That's my view on that.
And does it make the position more enticing? The longevity. Otherwise you take it away, might as well just stay in the position that does have longevity, and you continue, and just wonder, making sure that
it's really only the people that, it's only really for people who are in the situation, right? I mean, most people, if they're coming from the outside, it's not going to make a difference. So in that case, I don't really think you would need longevity to get in, but I think it's like a tricky issue for people who have come in And people have always gotten it. I mean, that is why it's important for us to continue to like monitor what these people earn in relation to other cities and towns. But I do think that we have to look at the whole package. So those are my issues. I don't have a very, I'm not saying to you that I'm 100% on one thing, but this is my thinking right now and what is areas of concern for me that I don't think are fair in this particular document.
I'd like to share one thing or just respond back to the health insurance.
Yeah.
I don't think actually, I think there's a disincentive to do what you were talking about. I think the incentive was there at one point, but when you consider, let's say it's 25,000 for a family plan and you're paying 20%, I think the disincentive is so strong to not take it. Now you have to pay 20%. So you don't get it for free, I guess is my point. So if you need it, in my opinion, and honestly, I'm basing this off my private life, is that if you want the insurance, it's there for you. And this is how much it costs for a single or a family plan. If you don't want it, it's okay. But but to speak to your particular point, I think 20% of 25,000 is that'll do it right there. It's $5,000. It's going to cost you. That's your disincentive. So if you don't need it, I think it's built in to make sure on that part of it. In regards to, this says no provision. This is a memorandum from the solicitor and the HR director by our request, by my request, but our request. But this is a suggestion, of course. It says no provision made for longevity, life insurance, or health insurance buybacks. So I take that is not that you can't offer life insurance, that there's no buyback on it is the way that I take that. But even if you could, for myself, if a full-time elected official wanted to purchase a life insurance policy through the town and there's a cost savings, I have absolutely no objection to that, as long as it isn't part of the compensation package. And if it is part of the compensation package, then it's adjusted someplace else, or it's figured in as the total compensation.
Well, it would need to
package.
be moved to probably A, like a dental, medical, and life insurance. I mean, it's a very small piece. I've never heard anybody get a buyback for not wanting life insurance.
I don't know. That's but it could, I suppose, but let's put a mark on that.
I've never
we don't need
heard
to go-
it. It's such a small,
Yeah,
like,
it is. You're
it's such
absolutely
a
right.
small amount of money involved. And usually those plans, I don't know what the town gets, like 50,000, maybe something like that of health insurance.
Yes, so in Bristol, the OPEB trust is actually the holder of the policy. So the employee will receive $10,000 if they pass in retirement, 15,000, the beneficiaries receive
I was just gonna say,
15,000.
you know,
Yes.
because if you can make that happen.
15,000 in service, 10,000 in
Yeah, so I mean,
retirement.
that's really a very.
So it's not a
small-
large dollar figure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right.
But I think going back to the health insurance, I guess it depends on what your family's health situation is. I mean, if you have two health plans, one offsets the other, right? So am I correct? I believe that's the case. So one covers your not like your deductibles and your costs, like your out-of-pocket costs to when you go to physicians, when you go to a health provider. So if that's the case, if you have like people who have various health issues, then they're going to want to take both plans because it's still going to be beneficial to them, I think.
In my world, in my private world, we do a lot with, well, everything with health insurance, whether it's Mass Health or Rhode Island Medicaid and all of that. And every situation is different. If it was an insurance like Medicare, for example, a secondary would pick up the 20% and you're all set. In this instance, one takes primary role. And if one takes primary role and it covers at X dollars, the other one doesn't pick up that remaining balance. So it's almost, I've got two, which one has better coverage?
Yeah.
And then again, it gets so expensive because 20% copay is not necessarily this is the wacky thing about insurance. Copays, deductibles, out-of-pocket expenses are all different things, right? So the expenses can total up, kind of making my earlier point, which is I think the disincentive is there to, if you need the insurance, then you pay for the insurance. I don't think the incentive is there to take it if you don't need it, from what I know. So, but we could certainly get clarity.
Yeah, I mean, I don't totally agree with that, but.
That's okay. Right,
So
absolutely.
those are my thoughts of the, on this issue, so.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question.
Of course.
Julie, I just have a couple of questions run by you, just to clarify. So just to break it down, so I fully understand. So the health insurance, my spouse, so hypothetically, going down a hypothetical road here, my spouse has an insurance, so I decide I don't want to take the insurance. There's a buyback and from the town for how much? 2,500, did I hear?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And then what is it for life?
Life insurance, no contribution by the employee. That's all
Okay.
paid for by the employer.
It's covered under the
Yes.
employee. And then the longevity, what's the accumulating?
Longevity depends on your years of service. 3.5% at 4 years is the first tier. Thank you.
3.5%.
I mean, that's high, I think. I mean, it's higher than some places. I mean, I think where I work, you get tapped out at like something like $1,800.
It really
after
varies
20-something
across the
years.
state. Yeah.
Yeah,
The-
like
I've-
18 years, something like that. I mean, it's pretty generous.
It varies across unions and state,
Yeah.
I think.
So the exact numbers from are as follows for you. Sorry. The exact numbers are as follows and you're asking about longevity. Current policy with the town is if longevity is taken advantage of, if you're here for 4 years, but
Yeah.
less than 8 years, it's 3.5%. If you're here 8 years, but less than 12 years, it's 4.5%. If you're here 12 years, but less than 15, it's 5.5%. And then over 15 years, it's 7.5%. So just for clarity, that's all of those percentages are on your salary. I know we probably all knew that, but so if you make $100,000 a year, just for quick math on this, and it's at 4 years, you're getting a check for $3,500 in longevity for that year. So, right?
That
It's
is, I mean, I will say
really-
that's a lot because like like I said, where I work, it's like 1,200 to 1,800 is sort of like the max probably. And that's,
percentages.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just go by like a step increase, whatever it is. I mean, that's pretty generous.
So is it fair to look at longevity as sort of a bonus in a way for just, Julie,
Julie.
what's an easy way to look at that?
Yes.
It's sort of like a bonus for your institutional knowledge, how long you've been. It's also maybe keeps the commitment. I'm just looking to value add. What is there a value add there?
Yes, so I think you're rewarding employees for their years of service with the town where they have much more knowledge and experience than the newer employees, and there's value to that. So, and unlike many private sector employments, we don't have merit increases or Christmas bonuses, so this is really a benefit to the employees for their time worked.
Mr. Administrator, you want to make a point?
Oh, no, we do have recent information. The Human Resources Director, she did a 15-town survey recently for a recent contract negotiation. And our longevity pays for clerks' positions is on average with the other 15 communities. We're right in the middle. So it isn't an outlier for municipal service, town hall type work.
So you're saying that it's right in the middle of.
We just did it. It was 15 towns in Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah. We didn't include the cities. It was the 15 towns. She did them all.
15 towns.
Can I ask a question on this topic though? In other words, that's what the town gets, but if for the elected officials, we wanted to structure something differently, you still could, couldn't you?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you
Yes.
could, lower that after like so many terms or after so many years. And it
Totally.
could kick in
artful.
like a 1%.
Absolutely.
I mean, something like that.
Right.
Like, I think that, yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to your question, Tim,
Mhm.
a lot of communities also have step increases, and then longevity and Bristol does not have step increases. So
Good
just for
point.
more information.
No, I'm glad you pointed that
Yeah.
out. Thank you. Yeah.
And I don't think any elected officials would have step increases.
No employees have step increases, so
No,
they
no,
probably
no.
wouldn't either.
Even if
Oh,
they
in other
did, like,
communities.
like, yeah.
We've experienced that here in Bristol. We've experienced that here in Bristol for many years. Just on the vacation and sick time, I'm aware of at least 2 clerks that do not have any type of contract. They elected officials and they use their time as they wish, They don't have any set amount of time for vacation or sick time. I'm not quite sure about all others, but I know at least of 2 of the 7 that don't have that criteria right now.
So may I do it this way?
Hmm.
It sounds like we have I don't hear a lot of disagreement. I've heard some certain points of disagreement. Maybe I could ask, Mary has mentioned a couple that she had concern that she would like more clarity or more discussion on. Anyone else want to offer anything that they would like to go other than what has been discussed thus far? I'm not suggesting we're taking the next step on putting a policy in place at the moment. I think what we can do is continue this to the and get some clarity that we've asked for, and to help us make a better decision on this. And ultimately, as I said, I think it's appropriate that once we get the wireframe on this, that we refer to the solicitor for kind of a clean copy that we can, maybe there's a tweak here or there. But for my colleagues first, is there anything that you'd like to go a different road on or propose something else, at least right now?
Well, I think it was helpful, the information that the town administrator just gave us on what's happening with other clerks. I think that it'd be great to hear from the solicitor if they can put that study together on vacation time and everything like that, and how some of the other towns or municipalities deal with those issues as well. Because I think for me, that would be very helpful to have a little bit more information. As Tony was saying, he knows 2 of the 7 clerks that might deal with this a little bit differently. But if we have kind of a more robust analysis, I think that's going to help us arrive to a decision that's consistent with, what some of the other places are doing and everything. So
what else?
In terms of life insurance, I agree that we probably should, we should move that to A as one of the items rather than leave it with E. Life insurance, right? Yes. As far as others, I don't have any other comment on that. I'm pretty agreeable to everything else.
So to your point, Mary, and yours just now, Tony, you're saying that it
should be part of the
it's
package
valuable
on A.
and it's not a heavy lift to complete. Is that what we're saying? Okay. All right. Any disagreement from?
No. I think, it sounds like for the elected official position, it looks like we're following the non-union benefit contract or compensation package, but we have questions over sick time and vacation, correct? And we're going to look into the longevity and the health insurance. Is that right? Is what I'm hearing.
So I agree that last part with the longevity, I think we all heard from the administrator that we did a recent study about, is it in line?
Yep.
I guess what we would need is more clarity on what do we want to do with it. So for example, as I read through that earlier, is 0 through 4 years is X. And we can decide if we agree with those percentages. But let's say for a moment we do, when does 0 start? So for example, Melissa was an employee of the town prior to taking the position, or not taking the position, getting elected to the position of town clerk. And I say that because it's a big deal. We've all done it. It's a heavy lift. It's a lot of work, and there's a lot of trust that goes along with that. So that being said, Melissa was with the town prior to being elected as clerk. When does longevity start? And did it stop as an employee and then start again as the new position? So for example, if it starts as the elected official, then you would have 3 elections until longevity would then start, right? Because you've got to be here for your first one, and then your second one, and then it's after your 3rd one, then longevity would kick in if it's based off the time that you start as an elected full-time official.
Yep.
I think where we go, at least in my head, where it gets very challenging is that what if an employee of the town what if there was an employee of the town, left someplace, had 10 years experience, came back? Does the longevity start if we're starting it there? Is there a time frame in which it should stop? Does it depend on, I guess we get into that gray area. That doesn't mean we can't answer the question. It just means that where does it stop? For myself, if this council said longevity is reasonable, then for myself, I think it starts at the election time. I'm going to use another example. Steve was an employee of the town for 20 years. Does that mean that he gets a 7.5%?
No, because he retired.
So, but
It might be, I mean.
So, but to that end, and just to be clear, neither the clerk nor the administrator said to me, I want or don't want, right? So we're not talking about that at the moment. I'm saying that in reality, these are what we're basing it off of. If you go, I mean, where is the cutoff point? When you leave a position, is it done? Does it continue with that? I'm not answering the question. I'm only posing the question. I don't know if we can answer that, and we don't need to tonight, but.
Can I just say one thing about that? I think what
Certainly.
needs to be added to this potentially, or possibly, is a sentence or little mini paragraph on, like a provision. If, to answer that question, like if a town employee runs for office as an elected, immediately, so they're actually leaving their position, then X, Y, and Z kicks in. So maybe in that case, they keep their longevity, and maybe they keep their whatever, or their buyouts, because right now, you'd have to buy out everything and then you start all over again if you're gonna get anything you're not. And I think if, whatever it is, you can make it clear in this document so that you don't run into this sort of issue again. That's what I think. And
See, it's funny because the opposite of that is like, Steve, I'm sorry, I'm going to use you as an example again, is that Steve retired, but we just recently said longevity is paying for your knowledge base. Does Steve's knowledge evaporate because he retired? Steve's not asking me to do this. I'm talking about it because he's a great example of this. So does it evaporate? And you're not saying that. But what I mean is, where is that? I think the policy here, in my opinion, needs to be that when none of us are here, it's logical, it's fair. I'm gonna speak really plainly now. I disagree with the buyouts. And we're here because of those buyouts. That's where this conversation was prompted from. This is one of those pieces to, in my opinion, and I think all of our opinions, that we move forward with this. And I think it's fair that they happen to be in those positions right now. Both of them are elected officials, that you should have an expectation of what you're walking into and what you're going to have moving forward. Reasonably speaking, I think the 2-year policies, all the things we're talking about, I think we have disagreement on only a few things, which is, I'm talking about this council as disagreement, and we may not even, it may just be tweaking a few. Julie, did you want to add something?
There's just one decision. I know you said you don't need to make any decisions tonight. There is one decision I do need tonight, and hopefully you'll be able to get there. We pay out our longevity checks at the end of this month. So actually, Steve, this is I think the first year he would be eligible. I asked him, he declined to even want to consider taking the longevity. Melissa, as you've been talking about, has been here for many years. She typically gets the longevity. So I do need to know if Melissa should be getting longevity this month or not, because it will impact her pay. So.
And if I may, I like you said, okay, that I make some comments because.
Yeah, just one sec, because Tony wanted, and then absolutely, go ahead, Tony.
No, that's a very good question. Okay, you asking. And I think the statement was made previously that we are removing both of the individuals out of the conversation and say, okay, where do we go? We're not going to change, at least I don't believe we should change any of the rules midstream. So at this point in time, it is what it is for the time being until next round. I would anticipate that this would kick in December of 2022, but not at the present time. So for that purpose, I don't see on my end, I would not be supporting a rule change in the midstream.
So Melissa, I know I said I want to get a clarity. Amy, if you could just weigh in on that. Taking no action means that nothing, I know this, it means that nothing changes on it. But because we're talking about compensation, if this council has no objection, I have no intentions of changing anything tonight, which means that if you're eligible for a longevity check, then nothing is going to change, at least for me. Yeah. So is there anything we do or not do right now that affects that? I want to make sure that this dialogue, we don't have to take action to say nothing is changing, I guess is my point. Does that make sense? I know that's a weird way of asking.
I think I understand the question, and you'll let me know if not. Taking no action is preserving the status quo. There is no, if the council is still deliberating on this issue, which I understand that you are, and you're waiting for our office to provide something in writing with details to be hammered out and agreed upon, then taking no action simply preserves the status quo. There's no need to vote to take no action until further notice.
Thank you. Melissa, floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. So there's a couple of points and things that I'd like to say to the council. First, thank you for even taking this into consideration and listening to me, because it is important to me, because it does affect me, as well as the town administrator. Not that I want to speak on his behalf, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen. But a couple of things I wanted to say was, when I first ran for this position, I had no idea that, or would ever believe that the council would change the type of compensation that I had, mainly because it's been in place for decades. The previous town clerks before me, I've had the same type of compensation package following the non-union package. When I took the position, I thought I'd follow it. However, I was not aware of the vacation sick time payouts or the severance payouts. I was not aware of that, nor did I expect it. And I also publicly stated that I would not take any type of severance upon leaving my office. But when it comes to longevity, Mr. Chairman, you did say that you made the example that the administrator, upon leaving his 20 years of service, was it 20 years? 20 years of service in the police department, when he comes into this position, he's not taking a longevity again, like it would start differently because there was a gap in between. Am I correct? So the longevity would be.
No, I didn't say that. What I was using it as an example. I think I know where you're going though. Yeah, I posed the question, not a statement on it. I'm saying that how do you define what's too much of a gap? I didn't answer it.
Okay.
Saying what is too long, if there is a gap that is too long. And more importantly, my earlier point was kind of as Julie kind of reiterated to Tim, which is longevity is to recognize and appreciate knowledge base. So I don't think knowledge base disappears was my point on it. That's where I was going.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no problem.
So then that being said, the previous clerks also before me and previous town administrators have received longevity for their years of service. And I believe that it should be valued. I've been here for 14 years. This is just how I feel. And I just want the council members to know, and the members of the public, how I feel. I've been here for 14 years. And when I came into this position, I was under the assumption that my time would be valued just as much as anybody else who sat in that position before me, that my institutional knowledge for the 14 years of service that I had transferred with my position. The previous, I'm sorry, not the previous clerk, the clerk before that, when she went from one elected office to another elected office, her longevity time followed her as well. Members of the union that moved to non-union positions, their longevity has followed, and vice versa from non-union positions to union positions, their longevity has always transferred. So I understand that here one of the arguments or one of the provisions that is being suggested to no longer be in there is the longevity. But I'm asking the council to take into consideration that my time, I value my time just as much as any other elected official that sat here before me. And I hope that the council recognizes that and values that for myself. That's one thing being said. The other thing that I kind of wanted to mention is I agree again with the severance packages not being paid out. I know that other people have taken it before and that was their philosophy and they're entitled to that. My philosophy was not to take that, and nor would I, which I'm fine with. But from a town's perspective, removing the severance time or vacation pay time out, whatever it is that you want to call it, and removing the longevity and some of these compensations or benefits, the two elected officials actually would receive less than any department head in compensation, not salary, than any department head and any union member that works in the town. So to attract people to take those positions, you're actually offering them less of a compensation than anybody else who works for the town. So they're actually being treated differently than the other employees, which I'm not sure how that would reflect on somebody wanting to run for an office. Well, I know that they would want to run for office if they want to make a difference, but for them to actually have two elected full-time positions to actually receive less in a compensation package doesn't necessarily promote wanting people to run for that position when it's different than people who work or people that we manage. I'm just saying that's how I feel. And the longevity, it does affect me. When I took this position, the budgets are they're online. Well, now they're online, but before they were here, I knew very well what every other town clerk or any elected official received before making my decision to run for office. And I'm just asking that the council would treat me in the same fairness and as equally as the people who sat here before me, with removing the vacation time and sick time payback. I just wanted to make my points clear.
Mr. Administrator, did you want to add anything? You don't have to, just.
No.
You don't have to, so it's not because you don't have to say something.
I'm going to comment just because I want to, this is public session. And I think it's important for me to say that I'm grateful to be here. My situation is definitely apparently different than the town clerks, and it's two different roles. The town administrator is very similar to a mayor's position, where I'm on call 24/7. I'm talking to the police chief, the fire chief, the DPW director at all hours. I'm talking to constituents after hours. So I appreciate that you understand the vacation should really be up to the elected person, right? The administrator. In my case, again, I need that flexibility. But if I'm not in the office, if I'm not out in public, I'm not going to be reelected. But I like to follow the letter of the law. And when I read the charter, it says the council sets the salary before the term begins. So for me, when I ran for office, and again, my situation was different. I was a regular retiree from the police department. I am grateful for my straight salary. My medical, to be transparent, my medical is for my family is through my police retirement. So again, it's good to vet this, and so that anyone in the future that's looking to run for office understands what is ahead of them. So I understand the clerk's position, and some of her points I fully support. That, you know, when she ran, she was expecting certain things. But at the same time, this is a privilege, being in elected office, and it is quite different from being in the union. And as the administrator, my salary, I think it's more than fair, and I appreciate the fact at times that my department heads make more than the administrator. Some hospital administrators, they don't make more than the surgeons, but our finance director has the expertise. And personally, I think the finance director should be making more than me. The police chiefs, at times, his life is on the line and he's under a considerable amount of stress. The police chief and the fire chief should be making more than the administrator, in my opinion. So I think that I don't think for the administrator's role, and I can't speak for the clerks, I think this is more of a mayor's position where this is an honor. I'm here for 2 years. And I hope I'm here many more, because I like to get more streets paved. But
Are you running for re-election, sir?
Yeah, well, I just, this isn't, I think it's important that, and again, I support the clerk in her efforts, because it's important that in government also that we have continuity. And that's a lot of the success is continuity and people with experience that know the past history on things. And so there's, I don't think this is going to be settled tonight, but
No.
I think it was put out in the open months ago, and I think this is a good first step so that the town can know what the right course of action is in the future, and to be fair to everyone. So that's all. But again, I just wanted to say that I am appreciative for being in the role, and I know the clerk is also.
Can I just make one point for clarity? I don't want anybody to misinterpret. It's not that I don't feel that people should make more money than me. I wasn't talking about the salary. I was talking about the benefits package. So I just want to make that completely clear, because I agree with the town administrator, where the police chief puts his life on the line, and the fire chief, and there are plenty of people who deserve more money than me. That is not what I was trying to say at all. So I just don't want to be misinterpreted on that. It was more about the actual health benefits and the health insurance buyback, the life insurance, and the other portions that were listed inside of this memo. So I just want to make that clear.
Mary?
Say that I think it just goes back to, you know, thinking about how to structure something like this, because it's a little bit of an unusual situation. And I would think that, like, I agree with, we shouldn't be changing horses and, you know, like changing the rules in midstream. I know people are in the clerk's position, and I'm not suggesting one way or the other if our current clerk is interested in staying for a very long time, but maybe the, I think if you banked on that, I don't think we should change the rules until it's a different clerk. That's what I think. And maybe if anything, it would go down to, like at some point you just cap out at what that longevity would be. And so it doesn't keep going up until whatever, I forgot the years that you said, I wrote them down somewhere, but I just think that, to me, that's the fairest amount of way to go, because right now you're actually changing the person's salary because longevity is part of the salary. And, so because everyone else has been, what went on and it became like a public thing, it was really the way it had always been. So it was like no one did anything wrong in the sense that, anybody was asking for something that no one else had done. Everybody else has always been in that situation. So I think we have to be aware of that and try to structure something to accommodate that situation and going forward. So I would liken it to, the changes to the pension system, for example. It was this very big sweeping blanket change. And it sort of included everybody in the same vein, which was, I think, a terribly an unfair situation. So I remember asking, because I was in my 50s at the time, invested, well, what happens to people like me? Like I could never catch up with the 1%, in the that whole aspect of that like other model. And they're like, oh, well, you gotta be aggressive, be aggressive. Well, no, it's not possible. It's not possible. So what, in my theory, is that there's been a permanent underclass that of people going forward who either can't retire or it's going to have a bubble at some point going forward in like Medicaid and other needs because they were kind of messed up in this. And it would have been a whole lot more sensible had the government said, okay, if you're a certain age or under, or for new employees or whatever, yes, it is a little different for new employees, but they still did that across the board and it didn't make any sense. And I think we need to be careful that we don't end up in that situation, because we have this sort of anomaly right now. And then we go forward and address it point blank. Like if a person runs for office immediately, while they are a town employee, this happens, whatever this is. And I think it needs to be addressed because it sort of creates a little bit different situation. It could be somebody from the town hall, it could be somebody from DPW, police department, whatever the case may be. And where they will then be resigning from that other position. And that's what you did, correct? You resigned from the other position. So I just think we need to throw that out there, and Amy in thinking about this and all of us in thinking about this need to think about that aspect of it. That's all.
So a couple things I think we've kind of encapsulated. I don't think we're going to go much farther this evening and make any kind of next steps. I think as we talk about this and longevity, a couple of points were made. One is that we're not changing midstream. This council seems to be, we haven't voted on anything, but seems to be in agreement, unified agreement, that this would take place at the next election, meaning anyone running for that position, whether it's the clerk, the administrator, or otherwise, would know clearly what they're running for.
Well, my point, if you don't mind, I just clarifying my
Certainly.
point. My point is, I understand that. That's what you're suggesting. I'm saying that I don't think that should be the case until there's an actual new person in that position. That's all I'm saying. So, because even if you do that, so somebody's going to decide, well, I'm not going to, I don't know. I just don't think it should be until there's a new person in there. And I'm not sure how you word that.
And the great thing about this is that the five of us will discuss this and we can continue this. I would imagine not the next meeting, but the following one, to give the solicitor some time. But where I was going is that we will give the opportunity. And if this council decides that the clerk's position, since it was particularly brought up, the clerk's position should have more income than it is. That's what budget time is for. We can have direct, we don't have to have an automatic on that part of it. We don't have an automatic increase in salary. So budget time is for that. And if this council believes that the increase should be greater than that of the, typically 2% is what we do, then we can do that at that point in time. We can build those things in. And I personally think that there's no expectation or guarantee that there's going to be a 2% or 1% or 3%. I think that that's part of what we're supposed to do. But let me back up and say, we're not going to take any additional steps this evening. I think we've covered a lot of things. Thank you to both of you. I got to tell you something. I put this agenda item on and I've been dreading this meeting. I find this conversation to be challenging. It's difficult because we're talking about human beings here. And this council, myself, all of us, this is not easy. This typically happens in my world. It happens behind a closed door in comfortable conversation, not with cameras and with public watching. And it's okay, the public's watching. Both of you said this is what you want, and I respect you for both of that, for that. But this is very difficult. So hats off to both of you and this council. This is difficult. Julie, thank you for all your input, and Amy for your input. May I make a suggestion that we continue this? We can go to our next meeting, or I'd like to give the solicitor a little bit of time. I also think that we have all these events with the 4th of July coming up. I'd like us all to have some time to consider this a bit more, if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
May I suggest that we, Madam Clerk, when's the next meeting after July 7th? May I suggest that we continue this to the 27th?
I agree. Like, who wants to be thinking about this on
Yeah.
July
Yeah.
6th?
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Tim made the motion. Is there a
Yes.
second?
Second.
Second made by Mary. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Of course.
just one question for the solicitor. Not really a question, but
Please.
something that might be able to help us out a little bit is there might be the scenario that longevity sticks around or something like that. So I think for us, it might be helpful to know what some of these scenarios might look like, where, you might have somebody that's not reelected and then they choose to become an employee of the town again or something like that. How does longevity work in situations like that? Or if it's somebody who's elected, or some of the other ways around. And I think that there's a lot of weird different kinds of scenarios that we might want to know about. And it would seem to me that some of these situations may have arisen elsewhere as well. So
That's why we gave you 6 weeks, Amy.
Thank you. We will attempt to address some of those hypotheticals in our memo.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yes, if I may ask of Julie, thank you. If I may ask of Julie, could we run a parallel of what it is right now that the 2 employees receive, the 2 elected officials receive?
Sure.
Could we do
All- the
a
whole
parallel?
compensation package,
Yes,
the whole benefits. Yes.
exactly.
Yep.
Okay,
We'll have that
thank
for
you.
that meeting as well.
That would be great.
And a comparison to if we were to run with this package, what would it look like?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the next item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is J1, and this is bid 957. And this is the 2021 town landscaping contract. We received 1 bid today from Daypont Landscaping Services, Inc. And there's 2 amounts here. The first amount is $239,730 for year 1. And that would be for 2021, 2022. And the second price is $247,316 for year 2. And this is for 2022 to 2023.
Council?
I move that we give this to the refer to the town administrator and to act in the director of Parks and Rec to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to refer to the administrator and the director of Parks and Rec. Any other discussion?
Yes, if I may. Do we know currently what the contract is, how much we pay an hour? I know this is not something you would expect to know off the top of your head.
I want to say 220. Went up 13,000. It was
19? So it's 239 is
220, right.
proposed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I believe we're currently paying approximately 220.
220. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J2, and this is for bid 958. This is for the road resurfacing project. We received 4 bids today. The first bid was from T. Miozzi Inc., and this is for $1,047,494.51. The second bid was Cardi Corporation in the amount of $1,328,933.75. The third bid was from Narragansett Improvement Inc. Company, and this is in the amount of $1,279,655. And the fourth one we got from D'Amber Construction Company Inc., and this was in the amount of $1,118,689.75.
Make a motion to refer to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
I'm sorry, I like the 75 cents.
Yeah.
Is this in,
51.
Mr. Administrator, is this in keeping with what we were hoping for?
It's right on, and it's nice to see they're all very close.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Any other discussion?
Glad to see we're getting some roads done. It's looking good around town.
We had a motion and a second on that, right? Am I jumping ahead on that?
Yeah, no, you did.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is K1, and this is Alan Klepper, Barrington, Director of Bristol County Water Authority, with the monthly report for June.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is L1, and this is the notice for show cause hearing for the revocation of the retailer's BV alcoholic beverage license for the Statement Tavern located at 31 State Street.
Amy, could you take the next step on this one, please?
Yes, at this point, the council can authorize a show cause hearing and notice will be sent. State law prohibits the renewal of liquor licenses without a certificate of good standing. The town has made several attempts spanning several months to ask the applicant to provide this. At this point, I do believe a hearing is appropriate.
And when are we calling for our next council meeting? Is that typical what happens?
That is typical.
Okay, council? Perfect.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Tim. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council, the last item on the agenda is L2, and this is a call for public hearing for the sale of town property located at 9 Porch Street.
So let's just take a moment here. 9 Court Street is where the Director of Community Development and others reside during the course of the day. It's the gambrel, I would say, styled brick house building across the street from Town Hall. And I'm sure Mr. Administrator, you'd like to add a little bit here, maybe my colleagues too, but the goal here is to right size, is to not have buildings that we don't need and improve the ones that we either cannot sell or should be improving. And that is happening all over the place. This is one of many steps to help us lessen our footprint, increase the tax base, increase opportunities for business and home ownership. It's all win, win, win. So did I skip anything, ladies and gentlemen?
No, I love government efficiency.
Hey.
It's what it's all about, right? We're doing it.
So we just need a motion to call for public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
And I would have say this would be on our July 7th meeting, correct? Okay, excellent. I heard no objection to that.
I just don't know if that's a good time to have.
A public hearing about selling property, only because people are sort of busy with family members and relatives and friends and everything. I mean, unless you don't expect it to be, many people care about it, but.
Say it again, please. Julie?
Are there 2 public hearings when you're selling?
There actually, Amy, if you could give us clarity on that. My understanding from talking to Mike Ursillo was no, it was not necessary. We did that with, I remember there was extra steps with the sale of Gooding for no other reason that we wanted to take those extra steps. Am I correct with that?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So, but in Mr. Administrator?
No, I'm just going to advocate that we keep moving and have it on the 7th. We'd like to get the go-ahead from the council so that we can stop moving up to the new headquarters at Reynolds School. So we'd really like to do that this summer.
Another benefit is to take advantage of this market right now, which who knows how long it's going to last.
True,
So
that's true, too. Yeah, okay.
We
Always the money person, aren't you, Julie? Outstanding. Mary's been convinced.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we had a motion and a second to call for public hearing on July 7th. See how quick government works, isn't that
Yeah.
wonderful?
And
Love it.
advertise.
And advertise, thank you. Is there any other discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so I would ask that we just add an agenda item to just really quickly, all of us say happy 4th of July, because we do not have a meeting. So we'll stop right there. Can I have a motion that we can discuss 4th of July?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. So happy 4th of July, everyone. This is just an outstanding time that we're getting back to see friends and family and people we don't know and not being afraid to talk to people we don't know and meeting new people and meeting our neighbors again and friends. It's just, can you tell I'm excited about this? And 4th of July committee is doing a wonderful job as they always do. And it's just that we're at Flag Day, we were at the Firemen's Memorial, which is a solemn but really pleasurable event at the same time. There's so many wonderful things that happen. Concerts are coming up. I know you all want to say something, but I'll leave you with happy 4th of July. Colleagues? There's no line, so go ahead.
I would just say happy 4th of July as well. I mean, I think people are really looking forward to being out and being with people and family and, people really seem happy at the events we've had so far. And I'm sure, I don't know if it's probably in the local paper, but around town, there are those calendars that list the times and all the different events that are coming up. And so if you find one to pick it up and try to attend many of them, there's lots of things that some have lots of people at, like the concerts, but then there's things like the interfaith service that is a fabulous, I think, a fabulous event and not that crowded. That takes place on a Sunday afternoon. So I think there's a lot of good activities coming up. So happy
Something for
4th of July.
everyone,
Yes,
right?
there is something
Yeah.
for everyone. That's
Something
right.
for everyone.
Yeah, I work for a global company, and when I get on calls and people hear them from Bristol, Rhode Island, everybody goes, "Oh my God, how's the parade?" Or I've heard people that have gone to the parade. That town is amazing. It's beautiful, and it's always shipshape in Bristol fashion. You guys do it up, so it's exciting to be back, and we resonate across the world globally on this. So it's an exciting event all around. Have a good night.
Anybody else?
I just,
Oh, you gotta say.
no, I do want to say happy 4th of July to everybody. It's been a really long year, I think, for a lot of us. And I didn't travel back home for 2 years. I didn't see my parents. I didn't see my father. I didn't see any of that. And then about a week ago, I went back home for the first time. And I got to tell you, people were so excited to be back together. And what I'll say about that is enjoy the time, enjoy the 4th of July, but be safe, make good decisions, make sure you got drivers, make sure you celebrate safely. And, but most of all, have a happy 4th of July.
Well, I was very, very glad to be at the flag raising ceremony. And as the saying goes, nothing will stop, Bristol from going forward, even though it was raining. But people were determined that the flag was going to go up and we were going to celebrate the, Flag Day. And certainly it was a very nice event and very appreciated. With that in mind, let's just be safe, be cautious, and enjoy the 4th of July. Happy 4th.
Thank you. I'd just like to reiterate what you all said. And one of the things I missed was the carnival. And I'm looking forward to seeing the trucks pull up on the grass there. And it's a sign of summer. And I think it's a message of success that we made it through this. And again, I keep saying it, I think the community is stronger and we're more resilient. And we all rolled up our sleeves, did what we had to do, and the town survived. So I think this is a great year and a great 4th of July for us. So I'm looking forward to the carnival and the marching with you, all of you in the parade.
Yeah.
Well put.
Yeah.
Madam Clerk, I
Look forward to seeing you on the zipper.
I'm not. No, I just, I'll reiterate what everybody said, just everybody have a safe and happy 4th of July, and that they get time to enjoy time with their family and, watch the parade go by. And, we miss those moments, when you see your kids on the parade line, and last year was a little different, but, to get back to some type of normal events and be with people and communicate again, it's simply amazing. And, I just want to thank the 4th of July committee for all their efforts in putting this together and making sure that it actually happens. So just be safe, happy 4th, have fun.
I was just talking to somebody today, and that during COVID, I was able to play Scrabble with my family, go for walks with the dogs, spend time that, and actually she said that those are the things that our kids are going to look back on in the future. And even though it was a difficult, challenging time, that we were able to spend time as a family, and we were fortunate to be able to do that, because there was a lot of people that could not do that, or were out there making sure that we were safe so we could do those things. So to all of those, from all of us, thank you, and happy 4th of July, everyone. Just need a motion to adjourn, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Hey, yes.
Isn't this weekend?
Yes.
Totally forget about that.